for the topic tonight, I'm focusing on ethnic and racial diversity. And so for me, this particular definition, in terms of the difference between diversity for me, ethnic and racial diversity, is a difference between people based on a set of beliefs, norms, it could be language, it could be customs, ethnicity, and or race, any of those individually or collectively that identifies those people as belonging to a certain group. And that's sort of an academic definition, but I wanted to make sure that I listed things other than just ethnicity and race when I'm talking about ethnic and racial diversity. So why does this matter? And I alluded to some of that just a few minutes ago. First of all, I can tell you right now that it doesn't matter what type of library you represent for those of us who are practitioners, and for those of you who are going to go into the workforce. Doesn't matter what type of library. The parent organization or the parent institution of that library, of those libraries, are under pressure to diversify. We're under pressure to see how we can make those organizations, could be city, county, it could be a college or university, it could be a school or a school district, or it could be a government agency or a corporation. They are under pressure to diversify. And that pressure, as we all have felt, trickles down to the different departments and to the different sub-organizations within the parent group. Another reason why this matters is because, as I mentioned, here in this country, we are in a time of necessary transition. Now, you noticed I put necessary transition. I could have said we are in a time of transition, but it is necessary transition. 2 days from now, I'm going to be giving a talk on emotional intelligence. It's a leadership theory that I feel very strongly about, that is a leadership theory that I was practicing before it became a theory, or at least before actually only became a theory maybe in the mid-90s. And when I read it, it was like, oh, that describes me, when they were talking about the leadership traits for EI. And transition, part of transition for all of us, whether you're a student or whether you're a practitioner, is that our organizations are changing and need to change. And part of that change is, how are we going to embrace working and serving a diverse population, and how are we going to embrace recruiting and retaining a diverse workforce? And this topic, the whole topic about diversity, I always make it clear when people ask me, would you come and talk about it? You know, the first thing I ask them, now, are you expecting this to be a diversity training session? Because I do not do diversity training. I've not been trained to be a diversity trainer, and quite frankly, I don't think that that's within my comfort zone. But I feel very comfortable about talking about this topic, because as a practitioner, as a library dean, we tried to practice. We tried to not just talk the talk, but walk the walk, and acknowledging that we're in a time of necessary transition. The other thing we talked about in our session, at least in my subgroup today, was about sort of the globalization. You know, this world is becoming flatter. And it's not just, if you've read that book, it's not just the economic part of it, but it truly is the fact that there are more diverse ethnic and racial diverse groups in this world than ever before. So if we want to compete, if we want this country to compete, part of that competition is preparing all of our residents, preparing all of our students in schools and in colleges and universities to serve that 1/3 of the population who quite frankly goes underserved. And this is not just a public library challenge, it's a school library challenge and it's an academic library challenge. I was a dean of an academic library at the University of New Mexico, and when I got there, UNM has done a superb job of making sure that the student population there reflects the population of the state, and the population of the state is about 40% Hispanic, and then maybe about, I think, 18 to 20% Native American, and we have that same student enrollment percentage. And when I first got there, I was shocked because I wouldn't see them in the main library, I wouldn't see them in the branch libraries. I kept thinking, where are these students and why aren't we serving them? And I'm not convinced that these same students could tell me, oh, I don't come into the library because I know how to use all the resources online. I'm not convinced of that. So the point that I'm making is it's not just a public library challenge. It's an academic and a school library challenge. And then the last reason why this matters, for those of you who might know Regina Minudri in California, a wonderful leader in public libraries, was the head of Berkeley Public Library for many, many years. I went to a session at CLA many years ago, and she was talking about some aspect of it. She was actually on a panel, and it was concerning diversity. And she got up and she said, and it fits right into social responsibility. She says, we have to do it because it's the right thing to do. So we owe our communities, as information professionals, we owe our communities. We owe our communities to reach out and get those underserved people. And again, this is not just a public library challenge or a public library issue. Now, in terms of cultural competencies, the idea of this, and you can apply this to any type of organization, but in this case I'm applying it to libraries. It's the ability of a person, of a staff person, to be able to work effectively, in cross-cultural situations, internally within the library. In other words, work with people who look like you and work well with people who don't look like you. And then also to work with them, with your users or your customers or your patrons, however you want to identify them, who are ethnic and racially diverse. So that's the concept of cultural competencies. Now, again, I'm very sincere when I say you do not have to be a member of a minority group to have cultural competencies. But here are some of the broad competencies that we need to be aware of and we need to be able to use.